Okay. Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome back. It's me, Karen Gill, your favorite booktuber. Yeah, that's right. So, today is January 21st, 2022. I am in London and I want to wrap up my 2021 reading and thoughts and whatever and put together the best books of 2021 from my perspective of what I read. Yes, this is late. This is very delayed. I know that. Please forgive me. But if I didn't do this video, I'd probably be a little bit annoyed when, God willing, if I still keep up BookTube and I do my 2022 yearly wrap up, it will annoy me to not have something to look back at. Now, a little bit of context. I read 66 books in 2022. Personally, I think it's good, could have been better. I've seen a few people's videos where they've done their best of 2021 and they kind of pick out 10 books. I don't think I necessarily read 10 bangers. I read a lot of stuff, some fantasy, literary, 2 romance books, a couple of nonfiction reads, but I couldn't pick out 10 bangers. And I think in 2022, I got to be a lot more choosy. I got to be pricey with my reading choices and not fall into the trap of reading what is lauded by everyone, because that might not be my cup of tea. And it's important we recognize what kind of tea we like in this day and age. To give a little bit of more greater context, if this is your first time here, based off of Storygraph, here's a little statistical understanding of the kind of books that I like. I mainly read fiction, and Storygraph would categorize that as adventurous, reflective, and dark. Medium-paced books that are less than 300 pages long. Now, I think the adventurous part of that is because I did read a decent amount of fantasy. Whatever, it is what it is. So, I think now is the time that we dive into some of my reads and my thoughts. Did I mention that I read 66 books this year? Because I did. If you didn't hear that, one more time. I read 66 books last year. I actually read more in 2022 because of the times, but I didn't do a lot of reading in the beginning half of the year for 2021. I'm going to talk about my favorites, what I liked, and then I'm going to conclude the video with some thoughts and reflections and where I want to take my reading in 2022. First off, we're going to start with some honorable mentions. These are books that I read that I liked, and I, want to mention them. I want to give them a shout out. Earlier in the year, maybe in about Jan or Feb, I read Convenience Store Woman, and I loved it. It's delightful. It's a very quick read. I'm sure you've heard many people speak about it because it is very popular. It's a story of a woman who graduated and has a job, but not a very esteemed job. She works at a convenience store, and she's kind of, all of society, her parents, her family is like, lady, what are you doing? Like a convenience store? Come on, get a real job, get married, fulfill society's expectations of you. She tries her hardest. Then she meets this guy, and he's a clown, but that's besides the point. And it's delightful. She is very idiosyncratic, I think that's a word. She's an individual, she's doing her own thing, and it really sticks with you. It stays with you. Next up, I read Serotonin by Houellebecq. This took me a month to read. It was in February of 2021, I went to India, and I brought that book with me. I didn't do as much reading as I thought I was going to do. It was my first Houellebecq. I know I mentioned it in one of my videos. I would say it has some delightful imagery. By delightful, I just mean very vivid. It really stays with you. There's some long sentences. Do I necessarily think that the plot went where I wanted it to go? No. Serotonin is a story of an older gentleman, dissatisfied with life, depressed, hooked on pills, and trying to get in touch with the love of his life, that he fumbled the ball in that relationship. This is a depressed man moving story, which I like reading those. So at the time, I do think I need to read more Houellebecq. I doubt that I have heard that Serotonin isn't the strongest of his work, and I do want to read more of it, but it was fun. I don't know. I liked it. Next up, we have Eileen by Ottesa Mosfegh. Now, we know I'm a stan. I love this woman. And this book was the one that was shortlisted for some prize. It almost got the Man Booker, but didn't, because Ottesa did that interview with The Guardian where she said she used How to Write a Novel in 90 Days as the impetus, sort of, to help her do this novel. And I think Eileen is a story of, similar to many of Mosfegh's characters. Eileen is our main character. She is very unlikable, insecure, young. She's living on the outskirts of Boston. She works at a boys' prison. That's the word. She works at a prison, and then this lady comes, and this lady's all slick and a city slicker, and she's charismatic and sexy and all that stuff, and then they get into a friendship. So you kind of see Eileen and this woman is mirrored in My Year of Rest and Relaxation, where we have the main character and Riva, you know, that relationship of friends, frenemies, you know, that kind of vibe. I like Ottesa's writing because of her language. The sentences and her word choice appeals to me. So that was up there. Next up, we have Mona. Now, I know I was a little slanderous of this book in my vlogs, but it's smart and working on many levels. I'm not going to talk too much about it because it is very intense and sometimes takes you to a dark place. But I do think it was good. It was really good. Then this one, Almond. Almond is a piece of translated fiction, the story of a boy who is born with a very small amygdala, and as a result of that, he has a hard time moving through the world because he does not experience fear in the way that others do. He has a hard time expressing love, and then tragedy strikes, and his mother and grandmother, his two protectors, are gone from him, and he needs to make his way in this world. And he forms a friendship with a very, very troubled young kid, and we just see that play out. I think the style is very terse. Because of the point of view of our character, we're getting sentences that are very removed, and our main character is not one for emotions. He's not very flowery in his language, but still you form an attachment to this kid and you just want him to succeed, and his way of looking at the world is so valid and so beautiful. I want to give this kid a hug. I want more. I want to know more about what happens to him. Okay, so those are some honorable mentions. That's about what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About 5 books that I liked in 2021. Yes, I did read others that were good. I mean, this is really hard to do, to have to decide the best of what I read. I am someone who can see the merit in a lot of these books, the other books that I did read, but it's a really hard ask, and I tried my best, and this is what I could do. 5 honorable mentions, and then my top 3 books of the year. So, we're gonna work our way backwards from when I read them. Not in any particular order, though there is a number 1, I would say. In the summer, maybe, early fall, I read Trust. So, Trust is a story told in 3 parts, but the largest chunk of the novel follows our main character, who Pietro maybe was his name, and this is a guy who tells a secret to a former lover, and they promise to never reveal this secret to anyone else, and he spends the rest of his life plagued with the fear that his former love will reappear and reveal to everyone what a horrible guy he is. You know, we see our main character live a very fulfilling life. He writes some novels, he teaches, he's an outstanding member of society, yet throughout it all, he is unable to actually live the fulfilling life that everyone thinks he has, because internally, on the inside, he is plagued with doubts and fears and insecurities, and just that push and pull between what he's doing and then what he's feeling is fascinating fascinating to me, and I also really enjoyed the exploration of marriage. This guy gets married, and that tension between him and his wife, of him having all these expectations put upon him, and the demands it places upon his marriage, was also really good. I liked it. I think it was worth reading. I definitely want to read more of his work. I'll get around to it. Secondly, for my top 3 books of the year, I'm gonna have to say The Friend by Sigrid Nunez. This story, it's sad. A story of grief, an exploration of friendship, a story about craft, the art of writing, what does it mean to be a writer. All of these things are happening. Oh, and then the role of animals in one's life, and how, you know, the bond between man, in this case woman, and dog, creature, animal. It's not like a normal novel. It's not like any other girl. It's, you know, different. It's a very quiet novel. I find that it's a hard novel to talk about because there's so much going on, and I think it can be read for so many different reasons. If you've recently undergone a loss, or you want to enjoy lovely language, you should pick it up. There's a bit of like a twist at the end, I would say, but it was really good and very moving and subtle and imaginative and great. I will leave you there. I would definitely recommend you read it. Next up, the final book. This was the number 1 for me. I read this in February or January, and I just keep on thinking about it. I read Life for Sale by Mishima. It was my first Mishima and not my last. And I'm gonna be honest with you, do I think it was exactly, is it a perfect novel? No, definitely not. Why? Because it was written out in installments for some literary publications, something like that. So you can tell this guy really went to town. The plot starts here, goes there, but like in between we make so many detours. It is crazy. It is wild. There's a vampire. There's the mafia. There's cartoons. Like, I don't know. There's just a lot happening, but it's enjoyable to read. And I think I also enjoyed it because Mishima's making criticisms about capitalism and modernity that still, reading it in 2021, feel valid and speak to me. To give you a little bit about what the novel is about, our main character, I think he works in advertising, is feels ennui. He feels ennui. He feels dissatisfied with life. So he quits his job and he puts up an ad in the newspaper where he's like, I'm selling my life. And then hijinks ensue. That's what I would say. You know, then things start happening. The plot starts moving along. It was what I love to read, and I want to read more books like that. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of insight into what the book's about. It offers you a critique on capitalism. There's a metaphor between, you know, everything being for sale. So it's good. Those are 8 books. I know that a few of these books get spoken about quite a bit on the BookTube. Hopefully, if anything, my words were inspiring to you, and maybe you'll pick them up. I would love to know what your guys' favorite books were, if you happen to have read any of these, and if you agree or disagree, let's fight. Let's sound off in the comments, okay? I do want to speak about very quickly some 2022 reading thoughts. I know that I want to read 104 books. I know it's doable. I just know that in the last few years, I haven't been as avid of a reader, and I know I can be, and there's so much happening, and in order to do some of the things that I want to do, I know I have to read more, and that's fine. I do want to pick things that speak to me, that aren't, I'm okay with reading new releases, but I want to make sure that the new releases I'm reading are things that are actually of interest to me, and not just, you know, getting hype. Like, I know we got hype beasts out there dying for their sneakers and all that stuff. I don't want to be a book hype beast. I want to be, you know, a book lover. So I just want to be a lot more decisive about things that I read. I want to do a bit more nonfiction, about interesting things, and reading some art criticism maybe would be fun. But we'll see what happens, because I'm saying all this now, and I could really change my mind very fast. Do you guys have any reading thoughts or like reading goals? I would love to hear them because I think it's so interesting to know what other people are deciding to prioritize. I hope this was fun. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. You know the situation. And I will see you guys soon.